Shattered by Brony Numo. Chapter 3. The sound of Twilight Sparkle's hoofsteps echoed through the still air of the empty library as she made her way down the staircase. Princess Celestia stood patiently, her gaze tracking her pupil as she descended the last few steps. Twilight Sparkle crossed the library floor, stopping just short of the princess. She stood still for a long moment, her eyes meeting her mentor's, unsure of what to say. Princess Celestia stared back, her eyes hard set yet kind all the same. A wave rippled through her shimmering mane as she flicked her head to the side, indicating a pair of couches set near a table in the centre of the darkened room. The young unicorn did not move, and Celestia tried to give her a wan smile. "You're going to have to forgive me, Twilight Sparkle, for imposing myself, but this is a very urgent matter." "Princess Celestia!" Twilight Sparkle rushed forward, surprising the alicorn as she threw her forelegs around her neck, standing up on her hind legs and nestling her face into her mentor's shoulder. Princess Celestia knelt down, stooping to the young pony's height and returning the embrace with a hoof. For a brief instant, Twilight relaxed in Celestia's comforting hug, before taking a deep breath and stepping back. "I'm so glad you're here. I just don't know what to do." "I understand," Princess Celestia spoke softly. "I left as soon as I read your letter. I must admit, this is not something I would have ever expected." She gestured once more towards the couches and table. "Come." Wordlessly, Twilight Sparkle followed along in the princess's hoofsteps. She blinked to fight back tears as they approached the couches. With a soft glow, the tip of the Celestia's horn lit up, and flames sprang into life on the tips of several candles set upon the table. Their orange glow cast a warm, comforting radiance across the scene, just as it had for numerous late-night study vigils conducted night previous. Twilight Sparkle's eyes reflected the glow, shimmering in the darkness with the last drops of glistening moisture. I just don't know how this could happen." Princess Celestia nodded. "I'm sorry." She paused as she settled into one of the couches, folding her front legs neatly beneath her and tucking her wings against her sides as she sank into the cushions. "That I don't have the answer to that question, Twilight." Twilight Sparkle sniffed loudly as she curled up on the other couch. She shook her head from side to side slightly, her eyes closed. "You always said that I could ask you for help if I was ever lost. I can't imagine being any more lost than I am now." For a moment, Celestia did not respond, merely staring ahead, her gaze focused upon the tiny prick of a candle's small flame. The light danced across her face, highlighting her eyes. Twilight Sparkle had never really noticed how weary they looked until then. Celestia blinked slowly, as if it were a strain merely to keep her eyes open. Dropping her gaze from the light, Celestia drew in a deep breath and sighed. "Twilight," she spoke softly, her voice suddenly sounding very tired. "I know you know how serious a matter this is, and before I can continue, I must know. How sure are you that this event occurred as you say?" "You mean, how sure am I that Rainbow Dash was raped? Yes, that she was raped." "Princess!" "Twilight, if we're going to discuss this, it's only proper to use its true name. I know it's hard. I know you don't want to, but I need you to be absolutely clear with me. If she was raped, I want you to tell me that she was raped. This is a terrible, heinous act, I know, but do not fear its name." Twilight Sparkle felt lightheaded, and she swallowed a lump in her throat and nodded slowly. "Yes, Rainbow Dash was raped. Forgive me, Twilight, for continuing on this track, but I must know for sure. I read the outline of your reasons in your letter, but I have to be absolutely sure. Are you certain of this?" Twilight Sparkle nodded once again, more forcefully than before. "I'm positive. I can't think of any reason why she would behave the way she did. And Applejack knows what she saw. Applejack would never lie." Princess Celestia bobbed her head in silent agreement. Then her eyes met Twilight's once more, seeming to bore deep into them with the power of her gaze. "Is it possible Applejack could have been mistaken? Even if she knew what she saw, it's not impossible for her to have merely jumped to the wrong conclusion. No, Twilight Sparkle spoke quickly, shaking her head vigorously. When Fluttershy went up to check on Rainbow Dash, Applejack told us what she saw. She told us how she knew. There's no other explanation. She said that Rainbow Dash was bleeding from her. That's quite all right. Celestia gently put up her hoof to shush her pupil. I understand now. What are you going to do? Twilight's question hung in the air for several moments. Moments that seemed to drag out into infinity for the agitated unicorn as Celestia settled back into the couch, tapping the gold-tipped shoe of her forehoof against her chin, devoid of a response. From the far wall, the slow methodic ticking of a wall-mounted clock seemed to draw out each nerve-wracking second as Twilight waited on an answer. Finally, Celestia looked up. The dim, flickering light cast deep shadows across her face. There were bags under her eyes. She looked back into Twilight's pleading eyes and cringed. I don't know if there is anything I can do. Twilight Sparkle stared ahead, blinking in confusion for a few moments, before shaking her head vehemently. Isn't there some spell you could cast to find out who did this? Celestia merely shook her head. I'm sorry, Twilight, but even if I did know such a spell off the top of my head, and even if it did work with perfect accuracy, that would hardly be the issue at Hoof. What do you mean? What I mean is, even if I did know for certain who committed the crime, I could do nothing to help you with that information. But what? You're the princess! You can do anything! Twilight started from her apparent slump, half shouting before she clasped a hoof over her mouth. Halting herself, she took a deep, calming breath through her nose and continued in a low whisper. Right? She knew her answer from Princess Celestia's eyes even before she spoke. I'm sorry, Twilight Sparkle, but even as a ruler, my powers are limited. But that doesn't make any sense. Can't you banish them and then lock them in a dungeon in a place that you banished them to, or something? Celestia sighed. I would have hoped you would understand by now, Twilight Sparkle, that I just can't hand out punishments randomly on the populace. I'm a princess, not a tyrant. But can't you make an exception here? And what? Pass judgment from on high without due process, or without proving due cause whatsoever? How do you think my subjects would see that? But wouldn't every pony listen to you? You are the princess! Twilight, I realised long ago that my authority cannot be limitless. Many of the laws I've passed over centuries have been checks against my own power. One of those is the court system. Justice is out of my hoofs, Twilight Sparkle. But what about Princess Luna? I mean, you banish... Celestia put her hoof up to stop her student. I thought you might bring that up. Twilight, all those years ago when my sister was controlled by Nightmare Moon, she posed a serious and immediate threat to Equestria as a whole. In that instant, yes, I had to use my power regardless of any established justice system. I suppose as you are my student, you might consider this a sort of civics lesson. In short, the only time my powers go unchecked is during times of war. The time Nightmare Moon, through my sister, plunged the world into night was exactly that. War. Now thankfully Equestria is at peace and my powers are checked by, among other things, the courts. I cannot just pass justice without due process. Every pony must be treated as innocent until proven guilty. An uncomfortable silence, broken only by the soft quiet whistling of the wind against the trees, fell upon the library. For a long while neither pony said anything. Twilight, having shifted her gaze to the floor, appearing deep in thought, while Celestia stared tentatively down at her. Finally, with a sigh, Twilight broke the silence. So, you can't do anything? Even for Rainbow Dash? I'm sorry, Twilight. I truly am. You and your friends have done so much for me, and for Equestria. You know how much gratitude I have for you all, including Miss Dash. And I'm sure you understand how much I wish I could help, especially in a matter so distressing. But I simply cannot. If I were to interfere on Miss Dash's behalf, it would make for an unfair trial, and I'm afraid it would be overstepping my bounds as a leader too far. My hooves are effectually tied." Twilight meditated on these words for a while. Celestia stretched herself out on the couch in an attempt to get more comfortable. Twilight watched her silently until she looked back up at her. "So what are we supposed to do now?" "Right now, the only course of action is to take the matter to courts. Now, despite what I've told you, don't think I can do absolutely nothing for you and Miss Dash. Being me, I can still pull strings behind the scenes. When the case goes to court, I still have the authority to appoint a judge. I know just the stallion too. In addition to being one of the most honourable justices I've had the pleasure of knowing, he's also one of my most trusted aides." Twilight Sparkle's face immediately brightened. "So he can get us a guilty verdict?" Celestia's small smile faded. "Well, no. He cannot just pass judgment in my stead. The jury will be selected at random, and they will be the ones hearing the case." "Okay." Twilight Sparkle sat silent for a moment, tapping her hoof against her chin. Finally, she closed her eyes, nodding as if she'd come to some sort of conclusion. Celestia peered at her, curious at her pupil's actions. "Well," Twilight spoke, slowly, "in that case, I suppose I'll have to start preparing Rainbow Dash's case then." Twilight looked up at her, gaze meeting that of the princess's. "Well, if we're going to court, I'll need to prepare a case for her, won't I? We need to have the best chance possible after all." "But Twilight," Celestia paused, taken aback by the young unicorn's statement. "This is, after all, a criminal matter. It is up to the state to try the perpetrator." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Twilight, that I have prosecution attorneys lined up to try all those who break equestrian laws. This is no different." Twilight shook her head slowly from side to side. "No, I'm sorry, Princess Celestia, but I don't think I want to trust Rainbow Dash's case to some cold-hearted lawyer. No, I need to be the one. I need to do this for her." Twilight nodded firmly, her voice ringing with a level of conviction that surprised the princess. "Twilight, please. I know how you must feel, but think about what you're saying right now. This is a real trial, and real ponies. Futures are on the line. I can assure you all of my lawyers are the top in their fields, and will treat Miss Dash with the utmost professionalism. Oh, Princess, please, don't ask me how or why, but I just feel like I have to do this. I have to do this for Rainbow Dash. She needs my help." "Yes, I can understand how you feel, but do you even have experience in this field?" "Well, I've read plenty of books on equestrian law for leisure." Twilight paused, uttering a bitter chuckle. "You know, it's funny. I've read books on equestrian law, but mostly out of interest. I never thought I would actually use it. I always just assumed I could rely on you. I guess those books will come to some use after all." "Twilight, I don't want to question your judgment, but let me put it this way. The main reason lawyers are so cold, and indeed so expensive, is because theirs is a very emotionally numbing and draining profession, especially when it comes to matters such as this. I don't know if you'll be suited to the environment of a courtroom. Do you really think you're up to it?" "Yes, I know I am." Suddenly tears began to streak down Twilight's face. She closed her eyes to stem the flow. Oh, Princess Celestia, this is really happening, isn't it? She sprang from the couch and ran over to her mentor, throwing her forelegs around her once again. Recovering her surprise quickly, Celestia gently accepted the hug, extending her own hoof to lay it across Twilight's shoulders. I can't believe it. It's just so hard." Celestia felt as hot tears fell onto her coat. She leant her head down, offering a supportive nuzzle. I know it's hard. Twilight, this is something no pony, especially not you or your friends, should have to deal with. But unfortunately, as much as I abhor it, We still live in a world where this can happen. Equestria is far from perfect, and I often feel so guilty that the walls of Canterlot shield me from some of the problems you all have to face. She leaned back, putting her hoof to Twilight's chin and lifting her face so she could look her in the eyes. Twilight's brilliant orbs, still glistening with the last dredges of salty tears, stared back intently. Princess Celestia gave a slight smile. Sometimes it's so hard for me not to see the smiling, happy little filly who became my personal student when I look at you, Twilight. Sometimes I can forget just what a brilliant, compassionate, strong young mare you've become. I cannot express how proud of you I am, Twilight Sparkle. I want you to know that. You've grown into a wonderful pony, and I couldn't be happier. This is something I never expected you to have to face. But I want you to know that no matter what, you can always talk to me, and you can always ask me anything. Princess Celestia appeared on the verge of choking up for a moment, but managed to hide it, and she nodded. Are you sure about this? If you think it's too hard, I can always assign one of my practicing attorneys. Twilight nodded, her conviction giving her a bit of her confidence back. It doesn't matter if I want to or not. I have to do this. For Rainbow Dash. She would want it this way. She would want it to be me, not some unknown stallion. I fear I ask too much of you. Never! Twilight stood up, her gaze fixed with determination. I'm doing this because I need to. It's the only way. If you ever need any advice, I'm here for you. Princess Celestia's gaze fell as she turned over words in her head. Twilight Sparkle, as I have been alive for millennia, you still seem so young to me. Please understand me then when I say how protective I feel of you. I wish you wouldn't go through this. Please, Princess, you don't have to worry about me. I'd be more worried about Rainbow Dash if I were you. Oh yes, thank you for reminding me. Princess Celestia sat up. How is she doing? I assume she is in hospital by now, yes? Twilight Sparkle bit her lip. Not exactly. Princess Celestia sat up once more with a start. Twilight, listen to me very carefully. It is absolutely vital that she be taken there immediately, not only for her health and possible sanity, but for your investigation as well. My investigation? Yes. Unfortunately, in cases such as this, the investigation must start with the body. Oh. Twilight's face fell. I hadn't thought of that. Perfectly understandable. I could hardly expect you to be thinking clearly at all the past few hours. So, where is she then? When I left her, she was still in her house. We have Fluttershy there watching her. Celestia nodded. Good idea. It's best not to leave her alone in her condition. How is she, then? From what we last saw, not well. I wrote about it all I've seen or heard of her in my letter. So, her condition has not advanced at all as yet. Not that I know of. Celestia looked pensive for a moment, before rising from the couch. Twilight Sparkle followed suit. There is not much time to lose, Twilight. I must be getting back to Canterlot soon enough. And you must be leaving as well. Princess Celestia. Yes? Twilight Sparkle rushed over to her mentor once more, embracing her for a third and final time. Thank you so much for coming. It really means a lot to me. I think I may need you now more than ever. Princess Celestia smiled at her. Go to her now, Twilight. She needs your help, and you have to get her to the hospital immediately. Yes, Princess. Wait, Twilight. Celestia stood over her pupil, who halted just as she was about to turn to leave, gathering a pulse of magic in the tip of her horn. The princess knelt down, touching her hornet to her student's forehead and imparting the spell upon her. She stood back up, and Twilight looked up at her with a questioning look on her face. Celestia grinned. By the power vested in me, I hereby license you, Twilight Sparkle, to practice law in Equestria. Twilight Sparkle's jaw fell slack for an instant, before she too grinned. I thought you couldn't help our case, Princess. Fortunately, Princess Celestia said, smiling, some things are just that easy. Fluttershy rested nervously, lying upon the cloud floor with her front hoofs tucked underneath her chest. Sometimes her eyelids would slowly descend and her eyes close, only to jerk back open as she shook herself awake once again. Her soft whisper of a voice echoed in the hallway when she spoke, addressing herself more than anything else. Have to stay awake. Every pony's counting on me. Periodically, in an effort to check on her friend as well as keep herself awake, Fluttershy would prop herself up, pressing an ear against the cloud door to listen. No sound came forth, save for the random quiet rustling of a sleeping pony rolling about in her bed, unable to find comfort. Fluttershy sighed. Rainbow Dash had fallen asleep a while ago, or at least that was when she had stopped hearing the quiet sobbing. Still, she mused, it was enough that her friend was still there. She did not want to think about what would happen if Rainbow Dash tried to leave. Fluttershy knew part of her task was to keep her friend in the room, but if push came to shove, she did not feel confident in her ability to hold back the other Pegasus. The yellow Pegasus collapsed back onto the floor again, exhaling in defeat. The fur of her face was crusted with the remnants of long dried tears, and she still could hardly wrap her mind around what had happened. The idea of that Rainbow Dash, her oldest friend and one of the strongest ponies she had ever known, had been through such a thing was enough to puncture her already fragile confidence. If this could happen to Rainbow Dash, it could happen to any pony. Rarity, Pinky, even... No! Fluttershy shook her head violently, throwing up a desperate bid to banish the thought. Try as she might, however, her mind's eyes kept returning to her views of Rainbow Dash. Panicked, thrashing about, crying out loud, Fluttershy slammed her eyes shut, still shaking her head. Still, the image stayed with her. Somewhere beyond the closed door, one of her dearest friends was experiencing more pain than she could ever imagine. Fluttershy could hear it in every toss and turn the sleeping Pegasus gave. Her train of thought, however, was suddenly and rather violently derailed by a sudden noise from below. Frantically, Fluttershy jumped up onto her hoofs, her eyes flashing open in an instant. Her first instinct was to run and hide, but she fought it down and pressed her ear to the door again, fearful that the noise had woken Rainbow Dash. A few tense seconds passed, but no new sounds emanated from the room. Fluttershy took a deep breath and turned from the door. Thankful her charge had not been startled, she turned immediately to the staircase, her attention grabbed by the soft, barely distinguishable sound of hoofs climbing the cloud steps. Fluttershy backed her way into a corner, hoping the shadow would be enough to conceal her from the intruder. Her mind buzzed with dozens of possibilities as to who it might be as the sounds of hooves grew ever closer. Her eyes grew wide as a shadow fell across the far wall of the staircase. It moved along the wall, inching closer. Closer! Fluttershy exhaled loudly when the twilight sparkle emerged from the shadowy staircase. Exiting her corner, she quickly crossed the landing and embraced her friend. Wordlessly, Twilight patted the Pegasus's back, letting her head rest against her own shoulder. Finally, casting a glance to the closed door, Twilight spoke. How is she? She fell asleep over an hour ago. Oh, Twilight! Fluttershy grasped her friend ever tighter, holding her close. I hate this. How could this happen? It doesn't make any sense. I know, Fluttershy. I don't understand it either. But we have to do our best, for Rainbow Dash's sake. Fluttershy nodded, drawing herself away. Twilight tried to smile for her, and Fluttershy returned it weakly. Have you sent your letter? Yes, I've spoken with the princess already. That was fast. Twilight agreed, only partially listening. She walked past Fluttershy, who turned to follow her on a path towards the door. What did she say? She said a lot, but I don't have time to explain everything right now. Is this door locked? What? No. I flew in there when she fell asleep and unlocked it just in case I needed to get to her fast. Good work. Twilight gripped the door handle with her magic and opened it softly. gently stepping her way into the room. Rainbow Dash lay upon a bare mattress, her blankets and sheets having long since been cast aside by her frantic thrashing about. Twilight's horn began to glow in a soft purple-hued light. From across the room, she carefully floated the spell over towards Rainbow Dash. The magic cloud encased the sleeping Pegasus's head for a brief instant before disappearing completely. Rainbow Dash's foreleg, which had been flailing about restlessly, fell slack as her whole body relaxed, sinking into the bed. What's he doing? Fluttershy's hushed whispers was now the only sound in the room, and Twilight turned towards her friend. Just a sedation spell. She may have been asleep, but I can't have her waking up on the journey. I'm not taking any chances with this. With what? What journey? I don't have time to explain, Fluttershy. Twilight turned her back as she spoke, now grasping one of Rainbow Dash's hooves with her own. Fluttershy rushed around so she could look her friend in the eye. What do you mean, Twilight? Please, tell me. Twilight sighed. Fluttershy, thank you so much for staying up with Rainbow Dash like this. I know it must have been hard being here alone, but I want you to know it was necessary. I have to take Rainbow Dash to the hospital now, and there's no time to lose. Please, tell the others where we are. I'm relying on you, Fluttershy. Fluttershy swallowed a dry lump in her throat and nodded weakly. Will she be okay? We can only hope. And with that, Twilight Sparkle clamped her eyes shut, gathering another pulse of magic in the tip of her horn. Fluttershy backed up against the wall, shielding her eyes. In the next instant, a brilliant flash of light and a loud crack filled the room. Then everything was quiet. Everything was still. In a daze, Fluttershy blinked until her vision cleared. The room was dark. Twilight and the unconscious Rainbow Dash had disappeared. Now aware of how alone she was, Fluttershy whispered into the night, "Be safe."